within that moment, that minute, that timepiece that you have with them, the ongoing journey, how you do that and how you continue to be an extension of that purpose connects them greater to that. That then onflows to the customer, right? So our job is to make sure that customer connectivity is returning to the brand.
Welcome to Process the Podcast. I'm your host, Arielle Thomas, motion director, social strategist, and founder of production company Cinema Tom, now founder of gummy brand Remy Wellness. This episode is powered by Remy. Take one of them, removes brain fog, allows you to focus. Take two of them, you're good for a workout. I have created them for you guys so that we can all get the most out of our days and live a really fulfilled life. Process is your home for creativity. I speak with some of Australia and the world's most creative minds all about their unique creative process. This podcast was recorded on Aboriginal land, always was, always will be Aboriginal land. As a baby podcast, we are still just doing this on our own, me and my team. So if you love it, please use your voice and leave us a review, share it on social, send it to a friend, or just subscribe to the channel. We need all the love that we can get. Let's dive in. So, Bianca of Del Rainbow, I'm so excited to chat to you because I remember when Del Rainbow came to be. I only really know it from the frontage of Del Rainbow. I didn't know you before. I just saw it and you launched with a couple of brands. You got fantastic press around it and it was very aesthetic. So that's obviously why I was like, oh, and I think it was also the time that was sort of just playing around with Remy and sort of learning what a sales agency was, but you guys are now so much more than that.
Yes.
So where were you? How did this begin to get to Del Rainbow when I would have stumbled upon you?
Okay.
First?
I feel like I want to take it back to the beginning of my journey. I actually did not start in fashion. I actually started studying where I wanted to be a lawyer. So I went to uni for 6 months, realized I absolutely despised doing that. And I had absolutely no interest in going down that pathway.
Yeah.
And it was actually my aunt at the time. She said to me, well, you need to work in fashion. You absolutely love it. And, that's really aligned with you. So then I kind of went out, started interning, whatnot, went to magazines, showroom, etc. Once I actually started working in showroom and particularly in brand management, but I also did, PR, sales, distribution as well. I got this really amazing holistic approach to how to integrate things and also how to work with brands so intrinsically. But in that same capacity, I really realized that by working in brands, working in showroom and also working for myself since I was now 21, within that space, no one cares. This is the biggest challenge that I've found both within this industry and in cultivating wider rainbow, is what it is, because no one really cares. The passion isn't there. They don't want to go above and beyond. They don't want to do that additional step that really supports the businesses to get them to where they need to go. They're not thinking outside the box. They're simply doing what needs to be done, the simple service agreement, whatever that looks like in a traditional format. And then that is it. It's parked. They, wipe their hands of it, move on. So for me, I'm obviously an extremely passionate person, as I'm sure we'll see throughout the conversation. Yeah, very expressive. But within that capacity, for me, I really wanted to dive so deeply into the why, understanding people, connecting with them, being a part of their journey and their vision and their story. And that to me is the idea of what true success is. So within that capacity, how I work the way I work and how Del Rainbow then came to be was that I wanted to go all in with this exceptional approach of understanding the intrinsic values of how you cultivate and create a brand, how you support them in order to do so, how you achieve that at a global level. What does that take, both in working internally yet externally within the brand and working within every department, achieving to get them to where they need to go, what their desires are, where they need to be. Also having the business acumen and development behind that to be able to do so, guide them, and then logistical, the finance side as well. So really, I guess, understanding every inch of it. But the number one thing that I only learned as I went along my way and why we started Del Rainbow was due to the fact that I didn't want to work with people without purpose.
It's hard, isn't it?
I simply cannot do that. For me, I wanted to create something where I could be a part of something and I could be an extension of their purpose and that I could back and support that. And then I knew that there would be, surely a number of other individuals that wanted to do it in that way as well.
You'll find
somewhere,
them.
Like we would find them and what would that look like? So, for me, it's really about storytelling, connecting with people's purpose and intention, and then bringing that into wider rainbow is what it is today. So whilst Del Rainbow is the vehicle, that is the true purpose behind it. And then, I'm sure we'll dive into all the intricacies of what Del Rainbow is and what it does, but that was a really key part. And then I realized the interconnectivity of why I initially wanted to be a lawyer and why I wanted to go and study law. And it was due to the fact that I wanted to stand behind people and be such an advocate for who they are, see their greatness, and also tell their story and be a part of that. So that is why Del Rainbow became, anything. And then also learning from, the industry and where there were huge gaps. And I wanted to do more. And I think that there's more out there. And why would you do it if you didn't absolutely believe in it and you weren't extremely passionate about doing it, And I think that lack of care and lack of passion is one of the most prevalent things that I see both in the industry since I've been within it, and why this, came to be, and why my partner and I created Del Rainbow. But, it's also prevalent today, I think, and that's a huge point of difference in what we offer. But passion and care.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. So I got asked the other day, why do big brands work with you? And I was like, because I care. And they were like, what do you mean everyone cares? And I was like, not
no.
like me.
No.
Yeah. And it's so interesting when it's like, and even when you talk about it, it's alive in you. It's like another spine.
It's a force.
Just like, da, da, da. Yeah,
it's crazy. A force. Passion is so authentic. Passion also breeds creativity. And when you build a foundation that's built upon that infrastructure, imagine that being infused into everything that you do. Every small task, every large task, the vision, the task that, you need to do in order to get there. If that is literally imbued in who you are, it breeds creativity. It makes you think outside the box. It makes you go that extra mile and step into something and have your heart and your mind connected with it, which I also think like that's where your, no one is you and that is your power. Like that is everyone's own uniqueness. So I think it's a powerful force to have. And I want to encourage everyone to ignite that passion within them and, having it be unapologetic, I think is number one. I've only really figured that out more recently. Like, I said it, but I didn't really, I was like, I'm unapologetically me. I'm unapologetically me. This year it was really like, no, I'm really unapologetically me. I'm doing this for this purpose. And I'm okay that I'm expressive. I'm okay that I'm passionate because I know that I'm going to work 10 times harder than the next individual and I'm going to get the result and I'm going to deliver it, and our whole team is going to deliver from that same intuitive space and be curious and, and that's what's so cool. So, and that's why, we work with the people we work with, it's really inspiring.
If you were to give us a little bit of a glimpse of Del Rainbow in its early phase, like when the little nugget of like day one almost, when you were like, this is what it is, here's the website, or here's my URL email address. Like you started this with your partner, romantic partner, right?
My romantic partner, yes, who thank literally the universe that I have him because he's the true balance to me. Yes. And you need both. Yeah. You need both in a business.
So where were you guys? Did you have a little office? Like now we're in the most unbelievably, it's stunning, and every little detail is beautiful, even down to like the coasters for the glass. Like it's so nice. I'm sure it wasn't always like this because little small businesses in tiny nuggets from passionate people very rarely are.
No, that is very
like?
True. Well, honestly, it just looked like literally a home office, you know, and then us on the road and being that extension for them and never stopping, because that, I guess, that formidable pace of when you know what you know and why people should be connected, that drives everything. So whilst it was just the two of us to begin with, you know, now we're very blessed and have a team of, 22 individuals, here locally within the business, our international team in the UK and the US as well, which is a more of a recent venture and what we're expanding now. But I have to be honest, whilst it operates at a broader, faster, bigger scale, it is still absolutely exactly what it was from day one. We've never strayed from that. And I think that, that's what's really special. And to see it even where it is today, I'm like, oh God, we're only just starting, it feels like we're only just starting at this, 7-year, stage that it's in now. But I think that was one of the coolest things too, like thinking to that and going, okay, what did we see then and how did it eventuate that 360-degree approach that we genuinely and authentically have within the business in the way in which we do everything and constantly want to push the boundaries, that ability to see where these brands are now today, from being an extension of that and a part of it, that is truly what encompasses what, Dalrymple is. But it has gone from there to here, and I want to be the biggest and the best, space in the world in what we do. And whilst that might be in sales and logistics is certainly the vehicle and the format and the, the practice, there's so much more to that. And that will grow exponentially, I know.
To really dumb it down, can you give me like the line items of what you guys traditionally offer and then now kind of what you've stumbled into offering, because it is so much more with all the touch points?
Yeah.
Like literally what were you invoicing people for, I guess, or like what were you kind of selling the dream with, just to bullet point it out?
Okay, so Dalrymple is a incredible service offering that encapsulates so much more than what I'll dot point, but I'll go into it now. So essentially there's two, sets of services within the company. One that not many people know about because it's such a rare offering and intrinsically is a part of exactly who we are and a big part of the element in how we built Dalrymple to having its magic. The other is obviously your traditional, wholesale global representation service. So that is your global wholesale service in sales. So that service entails working so deeply within brands to build a incredible wholesale ability within what they offer, all the way from range development, product development, production timelines, the lot, absolute development of that entire cadence, what that looks like, pricing infrastructures, pricing architecture, building in margins, what that looks like, how they can price themselves in a market to grow long term, a 3-tiered price point approach. It's absolutely so detailed. Obviously, there's sustainability increments as well, working within the business so uniquely before you even get to the actual sales service element, which is what we charge for. That is what is charged.
And then we'll bill you.
Yeah. So for us, and that's why I kind of want to talk about this, is because, that's really important. So that is all encompassing. To me, you have to be able to do that before you can actually wholesale a brand. So you have to be working with every single department. That's marketing, production, design, finance, the lot, right? You have to be able to work across all those departments, build into the brand what they need to be able to achieve in order to be able to take it to this global level, which is super, super important. And then what we actually do on the surface level of it all is that global wholesale service. So that is taking a brand to market, showcasing them within showrooms globally. So that looks like New York and Paris, obviously Australia as well, 3 times a year, putting them on the map, being able to introduce them and connect them with global buyers, showing their collections, facilitating what that looks like, connecting in, making sure that they can gain this platform and access from a really unique standpoint because of all the different intricacies as to their people, purpose, and product, and how we're going to actually build them within the market, infusing that strategy into who we connect with and why. It's all tailored, it's purposeful. We don't just have an open showroom model, it's private appointment only, which means that we have actively targeted and connected with everyone that we want to see or who we believe will be able to connect with these brands within that space, and obviously where they desire to be as well. Then that whole wholesale service in securing the order, positioning the PO, etc., facilitating that onto the brand and completely building where they sit at a global level at a, retailer partnership space. So not only that, then obviously that is working with all of the retailers on, ensuring sell-through performance, what that looks like, which I guess, we'll talk about deeper about being proactive and reactive with that and what actually goes into that time-space reality to make that work, because that's a very intricate process. So far in advance. Like, right now we're, getting prepared to sell, Resort 26, which is for that October, November, December period of 2025 delivery. So that's upcoming now. So we've already ranged for that. We've already positioned and looked at where the gaps were within CAD's development, sketches, swatches.
So
what
is that
looks
November,
like.
December this year? Or November, December next year?
Yeah, so when they, it can be 25, 26, depending on where the delivery lands. But, we are working 6 to 8 months in advance, if not more as well. So that is actually then again, working with the brands to understand developing their collections so they maintain cohesiveness, plus also key nods to trends. But then, ensuring that the price, the global consistency in price, it's all their strategy, anything that's required, pitching, developing, talking to retailers.
It's so much. much.
Yeah, I mean that's just the
so
service.
So much goes into it.
Yeah. And then on the other end of it, the wholesale logistics model is something that came in 2020 more formally. We actually, Arlen and I, at the beginning of Del Rainbow, actually did this for quite a number of brands because we often did see this element fall. And I think that it's one of the most intrinsic elements that brands, if they do not have a person of such high level expertise who's able to execute that, and then they have someone within the company that can drive that space as well and lead them and direct what needs to be done at that level, it's so intertwined with sales that, I think that if you're not doing both within a business and taking wholesale in its own accord to do it really well so the brands can do what they need to do really well, I think that's a big problem because it needs to be imbued within both strategies, right? Like they go hand in hand. That is basically from sale to dispatch is the full holistic service, right? So splitting that up, once we obviously submit all the sales orders, we've finalized them, wrapped them for the season, we hand them over to the wholesale logistics team. They then are inputting, actually to begin with, they create every single line sheet, they create all the costings, finalize.
So the brand doesn't actually do that?
No. So we,
they do it with the brand?
As a part of our service, this is what we take over from there's brands that we don't have on this service and they're sales only service, so they have to manage this element themselves. This service takes a particular level of brand as well for us to be able to do it, that it needs to be matched with what we can achieve in the market because it takes quite a few people to do this service. But essentially, they're implementing those orders into the brand CRM system. They're creating all order confirmations. They're ensuring that every T's and C's, dot, line, tick, everything is signed, sealed, delivered from major department level through to multi-brand boutique. They're actioning receivables as well. So that means that we're responsible for entirely achieving every receivable for the brand. So that's all payments, ensuring that they hit deposit timelines at the time of production, super sharp. So that brand is taken care of for what they are producing, that everything, because we work with made to order business and that is our model, particularly from a sustainability perspective as well. But, that's really crucial that, the brand has that coverage for what they are producing for these retailers that is made to order for what they're placing. And then additionally, obviously then submitting that with the production manager, supporting running production POs so that everything is accurate. So this is completely separate to D2C, right? So this is where the magic comes in because the brand can entirely focus on D2C and know that wholesale at every single touch point is so beautifully managed and managed to a level of expertise that is actually required in this global market. And I will say one thing, I see, brands that aren't on this service, and I see this slip because it is ever changing and it is so high level with how fast the pace is and what you need to know and how you need to know. And like, this is all we do, right? So that's super important.
Yeah.
Then we also run all the way through to dispatch. So that's us, once the product, the stock is ready and it's in the 3PLs, that's when we organize with the 3PL or ticketing, pick pack, everything that's required, pick pack priority list, for example, the lot to make sure it's running so smoothly. And that's when I'll come in, I'll be like, okay, we need to do X, Y, Z, and this now needs to flip to this strategy and move it with that team as well, which is so exciting based on what happens in the market. Then they're, invoicing for final, every kind of final receivable for that product. So at the same time as selling a forward season, we're also dispatching a previous season that we sold at that same time. They always cross over month to month. And then not only that, but we're building out every stockers kit, every imagery, every touch point, every little bit of brand product information, brand training that they require to have, boosting that out to their audiences, and then making sure that product so smoothly and effortlessly arrives in warehouse uploads is trading at a really fast, swift pace as well. So there's a lot of work that goes into that, and that is imbued into that sales service, realistically in connecting as to the sales team know how that needs to roll. Wholesale team knows the logistics of how it needs to hit, then working together at multiple brand manager levels and team levels on the brands that this incredible team at Del Rainbow work on, and then making sure there's such synergy. And even still, it's all a customer service based role. It's our job is to serve. Our job is to make sure that service is so top tier and is unlike any other. We want that customer to experience this service and feel so connected with the brand and happy and excited, and then trading really positively too, because that is, a direct reflection of the brand that we represent. So it is our job to make sure that we advocate and uphold that in a market, and we absolutely push for excellence within that space. And that is something that we do. And, and then anything that unfolds in that, anything in wholesale, like RAs, product,
What's an RA?
Return authorization. It's like, if a product arrives, it doesn't matter, whatever, we deal with that, work with production team, finesse it, organize it, create, like everything that you could ever think of within wholesale, we do.
I operate at a really similar level, and people think I'm insane.
Yeah.
Of the level of care and service, and the fact that you are here to serve. It's very different. I'm in there to serve, as in I will flip a sale based on a TikTok video or a TVC campaign, and can go all the way through to that. But I approach my clients in a really similar way, and it's quite an obvious synergy that I was raised in hotels with customer service at the core, that the customer is everything. They are always right, and they have to be comfortable and feel like they're at home and feel like their dollar is well spent with you. But that's quite a direct correlation of how I am the way that I am. How are you the way you are?
Look, I think just honestly, I was built this way. It's in my
vertebrae. Like there's some serious shit going on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, my brain does operate a million miles an hour. That determination and grit was how I was raised, and what I had to do. I had to become who I was very swiftly, but I think that was always probably just ingrained in my psyche with what I'm here to do and what my purpose is. I learned that pretty quickly, but I was, really, I guess, encouraged to be very determined, and I had to get through things a lot on my own.
Yeah.
And I think that also builds you, and you're built different when you have to sell to eat. Came from very humble beginnings, and definitely had it thrown left, right, and center at me. But I'm genuinely have never been more grateful for that, because it literally built me into who I am today. And it certainly made me advocate for myself and others. And I also learned that I want to be filled with passion and joy every day, and that's a really big part of it. And I think being in an environment where you certainly had to show up in that capacity, there actually wasn't a choice. They're almost commission based, so I got to sell to eat, and I
which
just
is wild,
and I think that there's just something different in that capacity when you don't have anyone to fall on. I never had people to fall on. I never had someone that was going to pick me up or support something if that didn't happen. No, that was my responsibility to do that. And I'm so grateful for it, because that's what makes me push that extra mile, get creative, find an immediate solution. Like, I'm so solution orientated, but in a really fun, creative way, or, will drive and thrive, for that. So I think that, look, I also am very spiritual, and that's a really key part of, how I became, who I am, and that really is infused into everything that I do.
And I think it's so contagious.
It is. Like, passion's contagious, right? I do wholeheartedly believe, like I said, no matter what your circumstance, no matter how you grew up, what you were born into, whatever that looks like, I wholeheartedly believe that everyone has a choice. You can go one way or the other.
Yeah.
It's all your choice. What happens to you doesn't form who you are unless you drive it to form who you are in a great way. Like, everyone has a choice of how they respond to that. Me, I chose, thank you so much. I'm so happy that I went through as a child, and within my childhood, I'm so grateful that I went through some of the biggest challenges that most adults don't even go through in their entire lifetime. You name it, I've been through it. Period, and I love that. And it's not, to me, it's actually not really even a part of my story, because I am just who I am because of my heart and my mind and how I connect the two, and my choice to be who I am. And I think that, I think it's really powerful. Like, everyone has a choice, and, and how you show up to something is all a part of what you can create from that, And anyone can do that or be that.
Give it your all.
Why wouldn't you? You live once. Like, it's a totally different experience because we've created it to be that way. It is not the norm. I never want it to be. I literally want to flip this industry on its head, and I feel like that's what we're trying to do. And, and I'm pleased to say, successfully. So, and we're just getting started.
I've had people recently be like, see me work on a weekend, and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, this is a choice. This is a privilege.
Yeah. Now you're cultivating at the connected capacity with why you do what you do, whatever you do within that moment is going to generate 10 times more because it's authentic. I find that I lock in after everyone has left and I do things really quickly, really swiftly, because when everyone's in the room, I want to take that moment to be working as a team. I find that so inspiring. I actually do so much more when I'm collaborative. Like anyone who knows me knows that I'm literally built on collaboration. I don't like working individually. I love working in a team, and I find that, working with everyone's strengths or, lending out ideas and talking and getting curious. Like when I go out to that table, I'm like, who's getting curious today? What are we doing? Why are we going to do this? Or giving the team this understanding as well of, hey, that small task we're doing now, I'm just going to quickly give you the long-term vision of why you're doing that and what that's going to knock on and what it will teach you, because one day you're going to need this information to deliver to a brand, a retailer, or guide and help support them. And for me, everything has a purpose. So everything's considered. It's super fast paced, but it's really considered. And the team that I work with are amazing. They allow me to be myself, and they know that if I'm coming out there and I'm downloading something, because I do try and work from my higher self mostly, all the time obviously, but I try and take every time I get something that comes in, I'm like, it came in, we have to do it. I don't know what it is. I'm trusting that this is the path. They'll know, all right, cool, let's do it a different way. They're so beautiful that they, they trust me. I trust them. That's a powerful place to operate. Yeah. And they all feel the same as me. They're passionate. They're incredible humans. But yeah.
So speaking of trust, what is it that Del Rainbow's doing with the roster of brands differently?
They are building community. That is number one, is that they're building community. They're really focused on their purpose. It's very considered. They're designing, creating, cultivating for that purpose, not trying to be everyone. They're being exactly who they are, unwaveringly exactly that. And
do you think that's coming from you? And you just be you, and we will do
I
where
think
this
that
fits?
Obviously, it would be a marrying of both of those parts. I think that as you work with people, you obviously infuse, your different values, and then, my job is to help push them and support them into staying true to who they are. But the brands that we work with, because they have this same value space as us, they're just so authentically them. And that's why I resonate with them so much, and our team resonates with them, and it's super exciting. But they're building communities. And whenever you connect in with those brands, for example, like a Sanagni, a Daisy, a Posse, for example, 3, brands that we've worked with for a very long time and have unbelievable global success, which I'm just so proud of and proud of them. But, you step into a store, you step onto their social media, you step into a product connectivity online, whatever it is, even if it's via a different person who's promoted or discussed the product. You immediately feel their purpose, and you do want to be a part of something that they are creating. And brands that can do that well in a market create a genuine, authentic community by being who they are and servicing from that space. That is unmatched. And I think that that's what they do so well, because here's the thing, right? People will forget what I've said right now, right? But they will not forget if something made them feel something in our discussion, or they'll take that back and think about how a brand made them feel. A good brand makes people feel something. And that is, you can only get that from the people, the founders, and that being infused into every panel and every archway in which they create, right? Yeah. That comes through their marketing. It comes through their socials. It comes through the ambassadors and the community in which they connect with, and how those ambassadors perceive and connect with the brand, because they do that energetically as well, is they're going to, because that is the value add that brand infuses into every inch of their product and why they, create what they do. And then obviously the customer at the tail end, who also discovers the brand through a retailer, my job is to make sure that exact value is really connected to by that retailer and how they platform the brand. But, then the customer connecting with that retailer, discovering the brand, are they going to have that same connectivity? Yeah. They're going to discover them, go back to that brand and want to feel something and be a part of what they are, the community and the vision that they're cultivating. And I think I genuinely believe that that's what our roster of brands is doing differently. That really aligns with Del Rainbow as well. But, they're doing incredible things because of that. Like you connect with Sanagni, my favorite people in the world. You step into their store.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable, right? And Lara's so amazing that literally the feeling that you get whenever you connect with her product is exactly why she created what she's done with her husband and what they've generated. And you immediately feel calm and you feel connected, and how the way things form and shape and, the texture, every single element of it, you feel Lara. Yeah, and that is what is so cool about that brand. And people who don't even know her, you're still feeling that because it goes into everything that they have done. And that for me is really inspiring.
Instant Agni, with their trajectory, where did they start? They didn't start with apparel, did they?
No, it was actually bags first and then shoes.
Yeah. And then when did you join their journey?
8 years in. So they've been around for 10 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 8 years in, so you joined them 2 years ago?
No, as in like 8 years into their 10 years. So they've been around for 10.
Yes.
We've been together for 8 years now.
Okay, wow.
Which is really amazing. They're, incredible. And the same as like other amazing brands like, Daisy, Posse as well. Really, early connectivities within those journeys, particularly within wholesale. But obviously, yes, and Agni are a long time and they're like family, and they really, truly are. They're some of our greatest friends, and it's such a privilege and honor being able to be an extension of them.
It's pretty clear that there's obviously a direct attraction to Byron Bay based brands as well. Why is that?
I don't think it's Byron in general. I feel like no one that's here is actually born here, if that makes sense. I feel like people are just attracted to the region and what it can offer you. So I think, the brands that are here, they actually really want to live a very balanced lifestyle. They want to do what they do really well at a global level and then also have a lifestyle to match, which you can do. And I think, St. Agni, Deji, 2 key brands that are here. I think the beauty in Australian brands right now is that they are offering something and a lifestyle and, purposeful pieces that are transitional, seasonal product, which really does align with what people all around the world are wanting to tap into and buy into. I also think that Australians are extremely hardworking, and that really translates in what they're willing to do, their commitment to their businesses, the drive, that really amazing success piece. They're also driven by quality, which I think is, high caliber quality product is sensational. I think that they have such consideration to their edits. They're not, like we talked about before, not trying to be everyone. They're really zoning into what they do really well, and identifying that within a global market as well. But I think what Australian brands have to offer is, that relaxed, easy wear approach, but then also can tap into occasional, slightly not too feminine. It really does have such a vast sphere within each brand. And I think that that's why they're having such success on a global market right now, because they really do have such a unique point of offering that can be bought into all year round and tapped into long term from what they are generating within the businesses. But Australians are talented. It's incredible. I think the talent here is, so undiscovered at a global level. And I think that now more people are starting to really understand and connect with this amazing talent that is absolutely roaring out of Australia. They are going to discover more, and there will be more platform of Australian business. But gosh, the brands here, they work hard. They do it really well. They're very adaptable. They're flexible. They understand how to, create amazing product that is very wearable, which I think is also another key thing that the industry shift to, that wearability function, plus also with, a nice unique sensibility and design driven, options. I think they do it really well.
What do you personally look for in a brand? And what happens if you're like, firstly, capacity is obviously a big thing because of your team and the resources and just how much you give. There was probably 2 parts to that question, even of when you bring someone on, it's like, oh, it's okay. Like, it's not a restaurant where you just get another chef. It's like,
no, absolutely.
It's like, oh, we got space for another desk. Like, it would be so unique. And so you must feel like you personally have to connect with it so that it can come from the top.
Absolutely. 3 things I look for, at an absolute, minimum basis, is people, purpose, product.
Okay.
What do they have? So that's kind of the first connectivity. So people, who are they? What do they stand for? Are they authentic? Are they genuine? Are they just as passionate about what they're doing? Do they understand what their why is? Is that infused both in their internal culture? That's a really important one. Not only what they're advocating out and building in their community, for that to have that authenticity in what they're producing and what they're displaying and what they're connecting with people on, but also is it culturally, really built into who they are? Because I think that's really important, because that tells you a direct indicator into what you can do with them as well, and how you can collaborate. Collaborative, open-minded people is what I really love and I look for, because then I know that I can make sure that our team is prepared to go all in, like you've seen that we do, and it be magnified for long-term commitment. That's another huge element. When we partner with a brand, we envision and want to partner with them forever. You know, that is really key, is that we believe in them enough for who they are as people to want to do that together as individuals long-term and really, really, really collaborate, because you'll be in the depths of things together. And I think that shows people's true character. So it's really important that you both align on these values and have this open-mindedness and ability to adapt, flow, and drive it. And I also think what people's purpose and where they come from, I really need to identify with that, because I really want everyone to be able to stand behind them purely and authentically, very genuinely. Purpose, what their purpose is. So why they do what they do. You know, we've kind of, touched on that throughout, our conversation, but I really want to know that. I want to know, but why they created what they create, what was the purpose, but beyond the physical form, beyond what they're putting into a market, beyond that connectivity is, why did they choose to do it? Because that is what is going to resonate with the customer. And that's what our job is to connect with, to get that message out into the world before anything else. That purity in why that person did that is the number one connector, which we need to do at a global market. That to me is the absolute diamond gem. And I tell you something, not many people know that, but the privilege that we have in Del Rainbow is that's our job, is to see greatness in people. That's one of my biggest things that I love, is I love to see greatness in people. So I can meet someone, chat with them, connect with them. I can see these little elements, these little pockets of how amazing they are, or potentially what they're blocked from, or what that is. And my job is to actually work with them both energetically and business level to make sure that soars and they can understand that too. So that flows through everything as well. Third, product. Obviously, the product has to marry the market, right? It's also got to it's got to be purposeful. It's got to be considered what they're creating. Why? Is it high caliber, quality product? What is their purpose and intention within creating that product? Do they have strong brand awareness? Now, that can be at a small or a large scale, either way. What kind of a community have they cultivated? Is that community authentic? Is there really a customer out there for that brand? And if there is, or, if it's built and imbued into the people and the purpose, how do we get that product there to match so they can thrive? Because that is unwavering, and that's the magic for who they are and why they do what they do. And if that product piece is there, and that awareness and community is there, and there is a drive for it, then we can really soar with it and help support them and do our part in the wholesale world to generate that and cultivate that. Because wholesale, actually, its job is to reflect and boost back to D2C. That's also a unique point of difference in Del Rainbow, is that we know that's our job. We're going out there connecting them with these incredible retail platforms to boost their infrastructure and connectivity at a global level, and those communities in which we want to drive back to D2C. That's why the importance level of actually knowing the people, the purpose, and then what their product entails, right? That's the job and what you're connecting at that global market level, because you have a buyer coming in, you have the privilege to see a multi-brand retailer, department store, whatever that looks like, what you connect with them on within that moment, that minute, that timepiece that you have with them, the ongoing journey, how you do that and how you continue to be an extension of that purpose connects them greater to that. That then onflows to the customer, right? So our job is to make sure that customer connectivity is returning to the brand, and that D2C growth is happening in part and alongside that. And that's why all of these different levels of all that intricacy of additional service, or the build in knowing, okay, you're here and you want to be here, right? Here's what you need to build in. Here's the partners we need to be positioned with. Here's what we need to be doing. Here's where your gaps are in your ranging and collection. Here's your fabrication gap. How do we develop this over time? Here's your pricing tier structure. How do we grow that so you can grow your customer from young to mature, and then have them continue to grow with you on your journey, so you're not pigeonholing caps? What does that look like at a proper business development level within any scale of brand? You can be a long-term, very built brand and have that missing, and then not maintain it and maintain consistency in market. Or you can be a smaller brand where that needs to be built from the beginning and foundationally. That connectivity, all of that purpose, just in that one order, that one cell, that one piece of the puzzle, that is what builds a long-term customer for that brand's D2C, which then magnifies in platforms, and that magnifies in platforms wholesale as well, because then the two are beautifully partnering 50-50 and working effortlessly together for a long-term commitment and a long-term customer journey. And what that unfolds into from there is massive, because then you've got this double-end spectrum market where you've got mature client tapping in, a younger client tapping in. They're both tapping in for different product tiers, what that offers, how you magnify and support a brand to hit that DNA piece consistently, to be exactly who they are, nod to key elements to achieve those things. Like, it's such a process in seeing that and then really, really developing what that looks like. So I look at all of that in 5 minutes of meeting someone.
And I feel like it would be very intuitive too.
It's super intuitive.
Yeah.
Like, obviously that's like exactly who I am. But
I'd be like, it feels right.
For me, immediately, if I know that someone doesn't have openness and connectivity and wants to learn, because the thing is that we all don't know everything we should. We're never going to. To be a part of a journey or to build a business or to play with global players at a level, you need to be so open and have the ability to collaborate so beautifully and effortlessly, because that's what makes you fantastic and that's what makes you adaptable and grow. And for me, I can feel that immediately if we're going to have that ability to do so, and also know that I'm going to go out and work so hard for you. So I want to make sure that you're going to deliver your part as well, because that, then if we just achieve this, it's going to flop and fall if we don't have all of the other components. So it's really important to hit those strides together. But I look for those elements, again, whether it's small or large or capacity driven, what that looks like. I love doing it in larger businesses. I think it's so fun. The beauty of working together from a small business, when you have that, is that journey and that growth that you have together and the success, like a Sanagni, Deji, like they're things that are the absolute most remarkable benchmarks of your career. There's nothing more powerful than being with a brand from day one and working together till the day that you'll exit this universe. That to me is the most powerful space, because you've worked and you've flowed and you've created and you've both poured your heart and soul into it, and you know that you're working for that purpose, that brand, not for anything else other than to have people connecting with what you know is so wonderful and what they can do, and supporting them to feel encouraged to, be bolder, step out of that space to drive from, what's needed in the market, whilst also remaining very true to yourself. That's a really fine-tuned balance that individuals have to be able to hit. And then also knowing, how they operate within their team. Does their team marry those values as well? Because you don't want to hit any roadblocks along the way when you just want them to soar, and we're here to do our commitment and show up. And, we want that on flowing to the retailer as well and their experience for that expectation too. So there's a lot. And look, I mean, you've got to be willing to work for it.
Have you got account managers within Del Rainbow? How does that kind of thing work with you being across? How many brands are is it a roster that you would call it, or how many?
Yeah, like matrix roster, whatever.
Yeah. How many brands are in it right now?
So there's 14 right now. And again, that's really purposeful. We're actually onboarding a few new brands currently, which is super exciting. And again, that is extremely purposeful in the way that we can do that, because we need to make sure we have space and capacity to do this level of service, right? Because we're not going to do it half-hearted. Brand manager, then you obviously have different scales within that brand manager space, senior, junior, etc. And then the same within assistants as well across those brands. They're allocated to those brands, obviously then all connected with me as well and driven from that space. I'm actually still a brand manager myself as well. And then also the same process in the logistics end. So exactly the same structuring and tier, so that you can then partner piece to piece with both of those ends. Again, sales connectivity with customer service logistics should go hand in hand, and both those teams driving.
So you've got one beauty brand?
One beauty brand right now. Yeah. So we've just started tapping into this market. I think that, look, Del Rainbow will be all encompassing. We want to do it. What we do and how we do it can be so malleable to any kind of product offering. I definitely want to have everything that could be within your home one day, and that's definitely something that
watch the space.
Watch the space. Look, I mean, we can do it all. But really working on what we do really well, and then now we can step into other categories and develop what that space looks like.
Well, you must have just got such a rich understanding and relationships with fashion retail. How does your mind then work to be like beauty? Because that's just new relationships, new customers, new bloody TGA requirement. Like, that's so different. Different in terms of sustainability, different in terms of longevity, formulation differences as well. Like, even what you can and how, like even nutritional panels around the world, or not nutritional panels, but those things that you're like the sunscreen levels in Europe are different to what we have here.
Requirements globally are, insane. But again, curiosity. I never want to stop learning.
Yeah, okay. So it comes from a place of appetite 100%. And that's exciting.
Absolutely. I don't want to just do one thing. I want to do everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's super important. So we're very curious. You can adapt, again, like I said, people, purpose, product, right? Knowing what we do, knowing how to do that, you can adapt that to any product, industry, anything. It's about how you do it, how you're going to show up for it, and how curious you are to push the needle. And I think, again, this whole service that we offer, buying, sales and logistics, that's what that is still appropriated to different industries, right? So curiosity, consistency and development, and I never want to stop. Sales is sales, right? And I think that when you do it from the way that we do it, which is very energetic and very human sensory experience, and know how to back it up with everything that needs to happen once you land a door, that can be applied to anything. You just have to work hard for it, and you've got to be curious.
When we talk about newness and being really curious, obviously the fashion landscape of where we're in right now, I don't think there's anybody else better to ask than you. I can imagine you must just be so plugged in and learning and taking things in and thinking so deeply about where this is all going. How has fashion, and from the part of the industry that you're sitting in, changed in the past recent couple of years, and where do you think it's going? Because you just got back from overseas, didn't you?
Yeah.
So that must have just been, because it's overseas, like I know we're in a retail recession in Australia, but how's the rest of the world going? And how are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously feeling great because, again, I feel like you can supersede anything that's going on in the world if you really know what you're doing and you, again, operate very uniquely like us in a really cool way. If we look back to 5 years ago, we got hit with COVID, right?
Yeah.
Completely changed the industry. That was literally when everyone went into complete panic mode, supply chain, everything was impacted. People canceled things they didn't want to create. And then the world had the biggest appetite and wanted more and more and more and more. So we went through that, which I think also, in a way, completely wiped the landscape and had everyone at any point and any time in their business starting from the same level, which gave brands an amazing ability to rise and shine. I remember when this happened, I talked to every single one of my brands. I'm like, you have just been given the greatest gift. You literally can start at the exact same platform and start from this moment and be doing it at the same time as these people. Let's get ahead. What are we going to do? How are we going to feed this more? How are we going to connect with people when they're, in lockdown within their homes? How are we going to build them into purposeful connection because they've been taken away from tactile, texture, experiential based, all this kind of stuff, right? So super cool to look at opportunities when they come. And that's what we usually see within, if you look at it from, a financial climate space is when you do see a recession, there are people that really rise from it and really fall. And it does very sadly wipe out a lot, but then it does give other brands a space to start from that space where, it also is really hard in a very oversaturated market right now. But what I do think as well is that obviously we've had amazing booms and then really big, peaks and troughs as well. I mean, there is incredible markets that are absolutely thriving. And for me, it's always the pendulum swing. One goes and another, when one's down, another one's thriving. So it's being global is super important because anywhere you are in the world, anywhere, you're a global business no matter what, because of our interconnectivity with every single customer via an online platform and or what you can do at a wholesale level as well. Whilst that kind of set everyone back to ground zero and what they could do and how they could connect with the consumer on a different level, which was also super cool. Then obviously Australia's been massively impacted. I haven't seen the Australian industry like this in, it was literally when I started in sales, I started on the back of the financial crisis in 2008. So I did see that. And again, there was amazing things that came from that. Obviously, like we had social media comes, there was a different reason how we could connect with clients and customers and what that looked like. Then you've got COVID, you've got all these things where every single inch of your supply chain costs more to produce items. So every price rose. I think some people were, using it to drive product price points and whatnot. But what that did is that it completely obliterated the mid-market contemporary space. Now we've seen a complete shift in the last year where that strategy that came in from both brands, retailers within that space. And in all honesty, you'd be looking at a brand in one market and it'd be priced completely differently in another too. So it completely obliterated global consistency, which is just something that I'm really not for as well. But then you wipe this contemporary market, which that contemporary customer is exactly who is buying in volume. And, that's that customer who has an appetite and who is looking to buy into something. So what's happening with that is you've got the customer who was buying so heavily into luxury now tapping into that market because they now can achieve the aesthetic, the product quality, the cuts, if it's all this kind of nod to the trend that they're looking for within that luxury space for a more accessible price point, so to speak. And then you've got this younger client who is also now tapping into that contempt space because they're being driven by what is, really functioning at that, power brand luxury market and what they're being marketed to and what they're being told is great or what they aspire to achieve. They can now achieve that in the contemporary brand space. And it's a really exciting thing for them to buy into that. So where I think the market is shifting and where it will go is that there will be this huge rise, and we're already seeing it because performance is exceptional and contemporary, which, that's where we sit within Rainbow in our space. And I knew it. I knew this was coming when they kind of priced it out. I was like, oh gosh, this is the market. This is where even your let's just say that 35 to 50, they can spend here and absolutely love it and be connected with it and merge it back in with their wardrobe. And then your younger client can also do the same. And then they're the ones who will be with you long-term, grow with them. It kind of gave this amazing opportunity for brands to really rise within that space. That also gave the ability for more discovery, where now customers were kind of only positioned to see that. They're excited again. They want to discover brands, but you want something unique. You don't want what everyone else has got in the market. You want something that is being backed and has consumer confidence from an amazing retailer that you trust or an amazing brand that you trust. But I'm really excited for what's next because I think brands in this space are going to really push the boundaries with discovery product. I think that experiential retail is coming back in such an amazing way. And as you can imagine, just getting to know me, that makes my heart sing because I want to step into somewhere and I want to feel it. I want to feel what that store's own vision is and what their why is and what that purpose is. And I want to feel something when I walk into that door. I want to look at it. I want to see that it has an inspiring aesthetic. I want the customer service to be next level. I want them to give me a story and them to have discovery brands. And we are seeing that very proactively in the market, that experiential retail is back. For, 10 so years ago, you're not having to understand a political climate and know the impacts of what that's going to have on your business and your brand and in a fashion space. Now you have to be so prepared for that. So for example, we knew what was coming. We knew there'd be huge political shifts in the US and whatnot. And, we work with all of our brands on ensuring that pricing infrastructure was already building that in to know that there will be a tariff change. We saw it in 2020. Let's prepare for it now. Let's boost that through now. Let's build out the strategies. You have to, before the industry was just kind of put out a product. This is what we're doing. And, happy days. And that's what we're standing behind. But now you have to be so well versed and prepared and understand every single increment of business, life, politics, a lot, because you have to be prepared for what's going to come. We came out of this last market, just getting back from OS, and during that market, we had 10% COO China product tariff increase happen, bang, right when we were mid-market. And then following the closure of market, another 10% whacked on for COO China goods. Now, looking into that, you kind of go, okay, cool, well, how do you adapt that? No, we're trying to build it into those metrics and that pricing infrastructure to hit these things so the brand doesn't lose out, so they can keep producing whilst also getting ahead of
Is that literally in the next range, when you have a pair of pants, think about this pricing because then this will come into it.
Yeah.
You're happy the customers won't notice too much and still be comfortable in that rate.
Absolutely.
So all the margins are,
And you're really considering it and not pushing your price out in your product, but kind of going, okay, cool, we need to cover this now. When we're importing to the US, for example, we're importing at a cost price. We're not importing at a wholesale price unless you're ex-works business and the wholesaler is responsible for that. We had to shift entirely to make sure all of our brands were landed in that moment to the US. And obviously that was really big. That was super, super important. But how do we build that into your pricing structures to make sure that you're not absolutely copying that loss and make sure it's not just push to the customer? How do we find that balance at a starting piece? Not only that, but how do we have strategy to figure out the product that was already pre-sold 6-7 months ago that's landing at this same time where they're also getting the tariff incremental impacts that then is going to the customer? We had strategy straight away, bang, 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 roll out of exactly what we needed to do to support it. Also that, again, the logistics side and the sales team working intrinsically together to kind of go, okay, cool, how do we make sure that every one of our customers are supported? Because not only this, it's not just the US customers who were impacted by this. It's actually everyone in the world. Because Canada, you might have we have a fantastic retail partner there where 70% of their entire customer base is actually to the US. Well, the Dentons, everything changed. So then they are also incurring that additional tariff to import their product to the customer. Within that, basically the same thing as the rest of the world. When you look at the UK, Europe, anywhere, there's a department, an online store in France where 17% of their customer is US based, and if not growing, because the US is literally the driver of the market right now. And it's exciting what's happening. Like, they're experiential, they're discovery based. The US customer is so much more happy to commit and trial something and connect with it versus wait for it to have awareness and what it's doing and it be at this certain point before we can tap into it. The US customer is excited by newness. They want to step into it, which is super, super cool. So how do we can't stop that customer from buying from all over the world because the rest of the world's also impacted. And then additionally, the brands on their D2C, how do we build that in and bolster it so that you're not, having that impact shipping to the US as well, so that your D2C doesn't completely, fall from that too. So there's a lot within that, but I think that that's a huge change, and these things you have to be knowledgeable in. You have to be able to go toe-to-toe with them, but then you also learn for future, okay, we dealt with this before. Yeah. What did that look like? What could happen? There's two pathways that can unfold here, and I saw brands that didn't react and didn't do it, and they're suffering. And, and they're now having a really difficult, client connection because the client's only experiencing, even though it's not the brand's fault, of course, you can't control any of these things. But now that customer is just experiencing that and they can't experience the magic. So, being on the forefront of all these things is super important. But I think that there's really exciting things coming in this market. I'm really excited for newness, new brands, even brands that have been established for some time, what they can develop in discovery. And you'll see all these amazing flagship stores, I think, starting to open where brands are really focused on building their own home and world and universe and experience and getting the customers to connect on that. And that's something that, how cool is that? That's amazing.
Yeah. As a trend of that happening, and then also pairing that with the really nitty-gritty work that you're doing, you mentioned that you had these strategies and you were thinking about this well and truly before they hit.
Yep.
What are you thinking about this week that is this could happen? We're kind of doing our research on this now in case shit hits the fan in that a listener may not have even thought of yet.
More tariffs at this point because, look, it's that's a political game. We have no control over that. How can we be thinking about it we can't keep increasing prices. That's simply a no-no from where we've hit now. You can't price your brand out of the market. So how are we going to look at supply chain? Do you need to move supply chain? Can you get another supply chain that's not a COO China? And what does that look like? Or how do you navigate that? Or how are you building out your ranges in order to offset a lot of that? Because the US does have a really big market.
Does that mean industry moving manufacturing to Australia or to a country that is not China that doesn't have a tariff?
Yeah, okay, exactly. Right. Well, the China tariff right now is the biggest one. There's tariffs for everything, but that is the biggest. That's the push point right now, that there is that trying to not accept COO China goods into the US. Obviously, everywhere that you make, you do pay an import. Yes. But that is a really big one where these have been doubled in the past couple of months. So thinking about it long term, that could probably continue. There's no control there. So how do you control your own world and scenario?
Yeah.
Diversification is key. Diversifying your supply chain, diversifying how you're generating, creating, diversifying next steps, thinking about, 3PLs where your D2C can also thrive as well. Yeah. So that's, and then, okay, we've tested it and trialed it. Do we cross-dock? Do we set up a 3PL? Where do we want to be?
Did you say cross-dock?
Yeah, it's just basically getting the goods in, having it land to a US 3PL and then not actually packed there, but you just cross-dock. But all these things, it's you got to test every avenue okay, if you're going to do that, what does that look like for you now? Do you have to become a US entity? Do you have to pay sales and business tax? Are you paying state tax? Were you paying federal? What does that look like? How do you plan for that? There's a lot there. If you're shipping sea, do you have to ship to LA or can you land air freight to Dallas? What does that look like? What's the, there's so much in my world that we're looking at right now. But I would say diversification of supply chain is critical because you don't want to be hit, when you're producing and you're months down the track and then, something wild happens, which probably will. We just have to be open and ready to prepare for anything right now.
You'd be really proud of me. I'm looking for Remy right now because I get paid in US dollars for one of my biggest clients.
Yeah.
Opening up a bank account in Hong Kong, which means that there's a much lower tax bracket
Fantastic.
there, and there's no income tax. So looking at that revenue stream, and then also for Remy, because we're with the gummies, we're manufacturing in China, they also want us to trade in US dollars. So there's all these things, and I'm like, I am a businesswoman.
You are a businesswoman. You are. But, that's the magic and the beauty, right?
Yeah.
You get curious and you go, oh, hang on a minute. How do I need to set that up?
Yeah.
What's going to benefit me long term, not just in this moment to do this? Like, should I look at this avenue? Like, can I actually do it within my AUD bank and set up a US currency, which might be a better avenue for me being based in Australia?
Yeah.
Or what do I need? Because you do get everyone's here with China, you are going to pay USD to get your goods or your FOB price and what that looks like. So, how do you bolster that into your costings metric? And then how do you set a global RRP structure that gives you alignment and you're not completely, here you're one price and here you're next. You've got to have consumer consistency, and that's also really important. But there's so much to think about.
ChatGPT has saved me in that sense of being like, what does this look like if I did this? Because
so good.
I don't want to spend
tools.
Yeah, I don't want to spend $300 getting my accountant on the phone, because she may be like, oh, we don't really do that.
Also, half the time they don't actually know.
Yeah.
Do you know that's the biggest thing that I've learned in business since I've operated is like they know what they know, and all of these fast-paced changes that happen in the world. And that's why I can encourage people to really get curious and go out on your own accord and try and understand things and ask the questions, because you're going to know what's right for you. No one else is going to.
Yeah.
I don't even, not take advice, but I listen and I learn, and then I cultivate my own view based on that, because I will ask questions that they're not going to give me the answer to, or they go, oh, okay, well, yeah, you probably could do that. I'm like, well, fantastic. Let's explore it. What does that look
they're not
like?
very creative thinkers, are they?
No. And I'm actually like, how do we could get around it like this, or is there this way, or what could we be doing to think, again, always thinking proactive, reactive, like having the ability to think in advance to be proactive, allowing space in your mind for reactivity is super important. That's another really key thing I think that a lot of brands go, okay, cool, we don't want to be reactive, we want to be so structured. I'm like, honestly, like you're literally setting yourself up for failure, because you actually have to have space to be reactive, but you want to do it from a really beautiful space where you have capacity to do so, where it doesn't come from a stress-based or a fear-based level. You want to be able to know, I've got this plan, everything's kind of set in process for that. And then I also have space to react depending on the time in which that comes, what needs to happen from there. And that's what I love about the brand partners that we're so blessed to work with. And that's literally how the Rainbow operates. It's structured but fluid. I'm literally like, if you literally have one, you'll never survive, and be open to change, because something's going to take the rug out from under you in an hour. Cool. Well, how do you look at that? Is that like, wow, thank you for that lesson. Amazing. Well, what is that teaching me?
Cool.
That's my number one thing. I walk out into the room, I go, what is it teaching me? What is it teaching me? What is it teaching me? What does it teach me? Right. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to act.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to act from fear.
Yeah. Flipping this and moving more into your brands and selling them.
Yep.
How do you operate with a brand like St. Agni that has such capsule wardrobe thinking, timelessness into more trend-based pieces? How do you circumnavigate those two?
That's a really amazing question to ask. And I'm actually so glad that you've been curious about this, because St. Agni do this so beautifully and so well. And I think one of the biggest keys within this particular, space is brands have to have the ability to both be timeless but nod to trends. So St. Agni is a beautiful example of this, because, from the get-go, they know who they are. They never stray from that. They're unwavering. You know exactly what you're going to get. That's genuinely wardrobing.
Yeah.
That is a big thing. Wardrobing is a big trend word. St. Agni do it genuinely. They have since day one. That is literally within their culture. That's what they create. You want every brand to maintain who they are in their DNA. And I always advise, teams to nod to the trend, appease it, but in your own way, so that it is very unique to you. Because what we need to remember is that within a market, we're being driven everything from the top.
Yeah.
We're seeing that in a mass way. We're going to be marketed that. We're going to be seeing it a lot at that time or whatnot. So we're literally getting delivered what that trend is. When you are looking for that and you don't even know that you're looking for it because you're being told that that's what's happening right now and that's relevant in the market because the buys are edited that way and that's all you're told to buy and that's what you're seeing and all this kind of stuff, right? Beautiful. Buyers do a fantastic job at edits, but always nodding to trends is how I like to put it. Or, hey, I know it's really tough and I know we don't want to do that, but the buying teams and the market are going to be looking for it. Therefore, they're going to drive the customer to be looking for that at that time. Yeah. So we have to nod to that in our own way that's very true to us, that isn't straying from who we are. And it simply wouldn't possibly be outside of the clients, customers' mindset that is not that brand. That's another really big thing. I absolutely despise when you see a brand be one brand one season and the next brand next season and you can't get consistent with it. So that's how something like that, again, structure flow, you know, and that's really cool because otherwise you don't maintain relevance and you don't develop and you don't roll with where the market is going. That's how you build a long-term brand and you've got to know what that looks like and what's coming and how to appease to it in a really key way or what's going to work or what a client's going to connect to or how to do that as well.
The consumers become much smarter. And with that, they're like, well, who's sustainable? Who are we going to buy from? That, although, yes, the price point, all of that is considered, but how do you guide brands on sustainability? Because it's so difficult. And unfortunately, it doesn't work to be sustainably minded and commercially minded. There are a few things in your supply chain that you can do, but we were at the panel 2 nights ago with Mary Lou and somebody in the audience asked, like, how are you ensuring every step of the way? And for fashion, people get pieces and different fabrics and things from so many different places in their supply chain. There could be 10 different places and touch points to make up one single garment. Once you start sniffing around that factory to be like, where's that from? They're going to be like, what the fuck? And even then to put that task on your team to do, you would need an external agency to go in and do that due diligence. They'd have what the fuck? That's so hard to do in a literal sense. So how do you, from where you're sitting in this guidance perspective, approach it? Because it will never be perfect.
No,
you can try-ish and you can do certain things. How are you sensing that and what are you seeing and how are you nurturing brands through that challenge?
Yeah, and I think that's, you hit the nail on the head. Perfection is not the goal.
Yeah.
It's what you're doing along your journey to make an impact and what is important to you. So I think sustainability should be inclusive and not judgmental, which I think it can really go down that path. Or then that's what opens up to a lot of greenwashing because people feel like, oh my gosh, I need to conform to this really quickly. Yeah. And you can't do it quickly. It has to be a process. But how I guide it, and obviously, in my dream world, everything would be hitting every 3-tiered level of transparency and down to an agricultural level and understanding that all the way through, which is
dirt is the sunshine and it's there.
Obviously that would be really important to me and I can kind of, speak to that I want to know as well that if I am, because we sell, right? So we're going to make a lot of volume and grow people, which creates more product. I want to know wholeheartedly what we're selling so that we're out there and we can stand behind it and what we're putting out there and the units that we're generating is doing a great impact or it's on the journey for that impact or what that impact looks like. I want to know what that is because I don't want to just be making more of something for absolutely no purpose or consideration. And I don't want to connect with a buyer or a customer and do that and not have full comprehension of it. And same as my team, I'm like, if you don't have complete comprehension of this, that is an issue because you need to be able to guide them. You need to be able to, and even if they don't want to know about it, find ways to filter it through your conversation so that it does have an impact because different things impact different people, right? So that's how I approach it. So I've got 3 things that I look at. So I go, okay, cool. Sustainability is an ongoing journey. It will be a forever journey and it will consistently ebb and flow. And when in 2020, it became really prevalent and there was a really nice line in the sand of we're not buying this unless it hits all of these touch points and we demand this. And that really kicked some brands into gear, which was awesome. I loved that. But no one can be everything. And it, as you know, and as you've kind of, experienced in your own journey, it's an extremely costly exercise as well because a lot of people weren't doing it. Therefore, the volume wasn't there to bring costs down. So the more people that do it, the more that kind of balances the market as well. And then those goods become more attainable. So I look for 3 things. I say to someone, okay, cool. I really want to go on this journey with you. It's really important for me to understand complete transparency in everything we do, and that's advocated to buyers and then at the tail end customer. So you can't be everything no one can. I also can't be either. What are the three things? I look at it as three, because sustainability should be looked at this way, in my opinion, of course. What means something to you and really sinks into your value of what you want to be a part of? Is it environmental? Is it economic? Or is it human and social? So what I look at there is I go, okay, environmental. Is that what, if you were doing something in your business structure to making sure that you were really honing in on that focus and impact, would that mean something to you? So that means, for example, environmental, that can be from a product level, it can be from a fabrication level. So that's looking at regenerative fibers, ethically certified fibers, like having certain set standards in your choices, your difference in, working with a particular certified fiber versus, a regular fiber, like for
understanding what will like break down and where the end product ends up.
Totally.
As well,
Plus also demanding that level of we are only buying this. So linen, for example, is a really high, developed fiber in the market, like ensuring that has European flax certification. It's got OQ Tech. And then also cotton, just as a key example within this, a regular cotton t-shirt. Now this is based on some metrics that were quite old. So, I might be incorrect now, but, one measurement of a regular t-shirt, if you're using regular cotton, all the way from supply chain through to the creation of that t-shirt, takes 8,602 liters of water to create that one tee. If you were to choose and support a brand that's using GOTS certified organic cotton, where GOTS is, certifying the product all the way through, again, from agricultural level all the way through to that tail end product. So again, you've got that amazing transparency within supply chain due to that certification that you can trust and rely on to create a t-shirt, that same t-shirt from organic standpoint with this certification, you use 760 liters. That is a saving of 7,000 liters or so of water in one t-shirt. So if that means something to you, you can think about your environmental impact. Look at water. It's our biggest scarcity on the planet. That's super cool if you can do that, and you can be cultivating a product by choosing ethically, certified product like RWS wool. What does that look like? Absolutely making sure that you have all of those regenerative or ethically certified elements to the product and material you're working with, not only at a stock bought level, but then consider milling your product to hit your comp so that you have full transparency over those mills. You might have a comp that, you want to achieve this particular texture. Well, then mill it and feed it into your collections and do it long-term. Design back to the fabric, work with a comp that's got an RWS wool component merged with the tensile lensing lyocell, and that then you've got your lensing certification in there too. Then what does that look like? Mill that fabric, design back to it. There's lots of amazing things that you can do there. Again, in environmental, then what does that mean to you from supply chain? What are they doing within their own, mills, everything like that? Like, are they working with solar? Like, what's their water recycling content look like to make sure that dyes aren't going out, into our water streams? All of these different things is like, you can really look into that and set a standard for that. What are you doing in your own company? Like, in terms of, are you carbon neutral? What are you doing in looking at your environmental impact as a business? What does your carbon footprint look like? And what are you doing to, better that in your processes? Then, that's just one small thing that like goes, as you can imagine, so huge. That's just environmental. If that means something to you, go that path and do it really well. Then there's economic. If you can't do those other ends just now, or you want to start slowly getting into those, what can you give back? What's your economic give back look like? Who are you doing that with, and what's important to you, and how can you, support that basis? That also lends into a part of circularity is actually also within that same touch point of it merges between economic and environmental. So that's also really cool, because there's a lot of key programs that support circularity that aren't just within the brand doing it at an environmental level within their own accord. You can also work with amazing companies that are supporting, that tenfold and what they're doing and connecting with people. What are you, giving back to the environment? Like, are you, certified? Like, do you have programs such as 1% for the planet? What is it? Are you big up? What does that look like? And then on a human social compliance level, which I believe is an absolute minimum. And that's really important to me. Like, environmental and human social compliance are like my two tiers that I'm like, this has got to be here. But, are your factories and your mills certified? That's what we then have on our line sheets. So, for example, if they're looking at a style product, you've got, product code, all this kind of stuff that you need to have. We've actually got the factory, the mill, the certification, the breakdown of what those certs look like, the auditing, everything in that one style before they punch in their numbers so they can look at the price. Because for me, it's about transparency at that level of what they're buying into. Not only that, all of our brands build it into their lookbooks. They have it on transparency on their website. Yeah. These are really important things. So I work with my brands as well to make sure they have those 3 tiers that we talked about covered on site and as much transparency as they can provide. You can click through and you can look at the supplier code of conduct that's signed. You can ensure that they have a modern slavery statement and a diversity and inclusion statement as well that is signed and confirmed by their suppliers. Like, then they do all this other great stuff on the side, but let's do that too, you know, and let's really look at it and go, how do we make this better and how do we do it now? Because there are restrictions surrounding it, like to reach a certain certification, even at a product level that we're talking about, you know, they might have to actually, unfortunately, mill or be buying into X amount of units in order to hit that certification. Yeah. So there's a lot that can go into it. So it is a long and a short term game, but I think who you are and what you stand for is super important and really going kind of helpful leather there, you know?
Yeah. What do you think some of the biggest misconceptions are about being stocked in a big retailer? Because like even now with Remy, which is so fun to have these conversations, people are like, what are you doing? Like you're just going to do like D2C, you're going to go Chemist Warehouse, you're going to go to Mecca. Like, what are you thinking? I'm like, I just need to learn the customer first. Like baby steps, please. Rome wasn't built in a day. I'm not swinging my big dick around, relax. I also have no capital in this business. So I'm just like, I don't know.
The number one biggest misconception is that everything thrives from that moment and that once you hit that, then that is like, great, everything's just going to pump from here and they're going to keep buying me and all this stuff and then it's going to knock on and do all these other things. So look, I think that that's the number one biggest conception is that the job only begins once you land that product into that door. The job is not getting the order. The job is what happens from that moment onwards so that you can continue a long-term partnership with them. And I think that people think that being partnered and aligned with a certain key retailer is the be-all end-all, but actually it's what you do to maintain it. Like I look at brands at launch and they say they partner with XYZ and I'm like, cool, I'll check in 6 to 8 months and see if you continued because did you back it up and did it work? Because that's what I'm working with our brands on is the moment that they secure a door, even if it's on their dream list or even if strategically we know that that's where we need to be positioned in the market, we're already working for that before it happens so that, again, we can be proactive, reactive. I supply them with all of the different touch points and the different creative ways in which you can make sure that you have success and consumer success within that particular market. Because working with a major department store or a major e-tailer, it's a 50-50 business. They support you by buying into your brand, giving you volume and giving you a platform that you couldn't achieve on your own accord, right? Fantastic. They're going to promote you and connect you with their audience, which is then going to come back and filter through to you. So you have to be able to do the work to support that and grow it. And what does that entail? So many brands don't know that and they get super lazy. They go, great, I've, fantastic.
I've secured, put their feet up.
I've secured this, fantastic or whatnot. It's like, no. That's when the real work starts. That's when you really have to consistently be making sure that you've got everything in place so that the moment that you launch, you've supported and you've got support strategies in place drop by drop, month by month, so that that is consistently uplifted. You also have a range architecture and strategy where there is multiple different spaces where you can space out a buy so you consistently feed back into the new in what that looks like, how that there's, cross-pollination between product as well. So if it remains there on site or on rail, it's going to cohesively synchronize together and it gives the customer that ability to feel freshness plus buy into not aged, but product that might have been there a couple of months before and then reintegrate it back as well. How you're going to boost the ambassador community within that particular region, state, country. How do you boost brand awareness drive? What does that look like? How are you cultivating content to drive that and facilitate that within those retailer marketing teams? How are you getting
brand?
Do they
expect you to have content ready to go for them to then
absolutely
come through as well?
Absolutely. But I think as well, not many people do that.
Yeah.
Like we're doing that in advance just at the thought that they might use it. Which they do. And if you look on any major retailer that we're partnered with, which, incredibly, we're partnered with all the best in the world, and we truly are, you'll look at that and you'll see a magnitude of our brands across their social channels. Or if you sign up to their EDM, you will always see our brands in frequent EDMs because of the work that goes into making sure that it works once you're there. Also strategy, if you launch with X retailer here, you're not going to get this one over here.
Yeah.
Long term, no matter